Chopping it up from the 914. It's your host, Jacob Cooperman, talking about stuff he probably isn't qualified to. Strap in for a podcast filled with rambling hot takes and generalizations. All-encompassing and all for you. Welcome to the show.
Chopping it up, episode 15 now. 15 of these things. I've been doing this for, what is that? I do one a week. I maybe skip, something like that. Well, I skipped, there was 2 periods of a couple of months where I didn't pod, but I've been doing this for a while is the point. But we have our first ever double-dipping guest, James Dezell. Had him on the pod last time. We did a Joe Rogan-esque experience podcast, so I figured if it's nice, do it thrice. So we're having him on a second time. Wait. If it's nice, do it twice. But I said it the last time. Whatever. He's here. And we've got a lot to talk about. We got a lot to unpack. I've talked in depth about it on some of my other podcasts, but I wanted to get mostly your takes on it. And I can get even I'll put a little different spin on it just for the folks at home. Because I feel like I don't know if everyone listens. I don't know if there's an overlap between my audiences. But whatever. Let's get into the Redskins first. You think we should provide context for anyone listening? Do you think anyone listening to this might not know what's going on? Are you frozen?
I think it's fair if you provide a little context,
Okay.
to the different people that are listening. So why not?
So essentially, I guess we can trace this whole thing back to when Dan Snyder called for a name change, or FedEx called for a name change following the public outrage at the name. It had been actually going back to like 2013, but nothing had really been done about it because they kind of covered it up with what it was. They used public polls, right, with Native Americans.
They used a poll from the Washington Post that said 90% of Native Americans are not offended by Redskins, which had no scientific data or any. They would ask where the sources were from, and they wouldn't necessarily be able to find them, or they would not necessarily provide it. But they hung on to that as the reason why they would not change their name.
Right. So essentially what happened is Dan Snyder kind of, like you said, he hung on to that for a while. He stayed on his high horse, and there hasn't been a significant change up until recently, and the general public got really enraged, or at least I guess there were more eyes on it than there were before. So this prompted FedEx to ask Dan Snyder to change the name, or else they along with, I think it was some other sponsors, were going to pull out.
Nike and Pepsi.
Yeah, they were going to pull out of the stadium unless the Redskins changed the name. Well, I guess they're now the TBD Washington team, as Pat McAfee says on the show. So after that, shortly, some whistleblowers from within the organization, some people seem to think that it was minority owners. Some people seem to think that it was just, I think, grunts within the team organization. They broke this story on, it was the Discord for the Redskins, then it went to the Reddit for the Redskins, then it went to the Twitter for the Redskins, which is interesting to see how stuff climbs the internet ladder, for lack of a better term. And there was a lot of wild allegations within those tweets, within that Discord, within that Reddit. There were allegations of them pimping out cheerleaders, withholding their visas in foreign countries, using them in naked photo shoots. Dan Snyder, there were a lot of allegations of his rampant drug use amongst the team. There was a culture, which the culture did turn out to be true to some extent. We'll get into that in a second. I didn't get a chance to read the article. I really wanted to in preparation for this podcast, but the Washington Post, for whatever reason, wouldn't let me read it unless I subscribed for $1 a month, which I'm not going to subscribe to read, So I did the roundabout thing. Apparently what came out was a lot less, and I don't want to say underwhelming, but it was not really what was purported in all those tweets and all that, the drummed up drama beforehand. Really, it was just, and this is terrible in itself, really, it was just about 15 or so women within the organization that had worked there over the past. At the moment, I think 14 out of the 15 have they can't talk legally. There's some sort of a liability there where they're not allowed to speak. That they've just experienced over the course of a couple of years, sexual assault.
It was 14 years. It was from
14 years.
It went all the way from 2006 to now, is in 2020. But but the main woman that spoke out had worked with the team from who was Miss Applegate, worked from the team from 2014 to 2015.
Yeah.
But with everything that you're saying, like this was blown so out of proportion from like Reddit and everything that was kind of being like talked about on social media that I fully thought like that this was going to be like epic, that this was just going to like blow up everything. I mean, there were ties for Snyder himself being like tied to Jeffrey Epstein, which like that in itself would have been just
that would have been
crazy,
monstrous considering
which like that was what I was expecting. And, you know, the pimping out of cheerleaders is what was being reported on Reddit. They even said that Jay Gruden was involved. That he like participated. Yeah. The former head coach, that he participated in some of this. So, I mean, it really just, I mean, when I was reading all of this, you know, you can only, if anything, this is just even more of a lesson, you know, don't believe everything that you read and hear necessarily. I mean, it was crazy, you know, just because I was expecting this monstrous announcement that was going to like absolutely force Dan Snyder to sell the team, was going to just blow up the Washington's organization as a whole. He should
still, but it's not. This is not going to force him to sell it. I still think he should, but
no. I was going to say they hired a lawyer to combat that. You know, like kind of even right before the story was released, so everyone knew that there was going to be a report based on Washington's culture.
Right.
Not to say that it's not terrible, you know, for 15 women to complain about harassment issues dating back to 2006, but all the talk about Snyder being involved and, you know, Jay Gruden, what, like, I mean, I personally, I don't know, you know, if the post was making you subscribe to it, then I don't know how I was able to see it, because I just ended up reading the story on my phone.
I don't know. Maybe so many people went to it and like they got so much traffic, they figured they could just do that and make a quick buck.
I have no idea.
That wouldn't surprise me.
I was able to read it fully, and I did. But I mean, from the only thing that they were able to really like kind of nab Snyder with was just he had this kind of, he promoted the culture of just passive aggressiveness, where he, you know, it was almost like kind of just like a bully culture. Like the main example it gave was there was a male cheerleader that worked on his staff that he would like bully and make do cartwheels. So they were kind of just citing like that being the culture there, that it was almost kind of like this is an anything kind of goes environment, which is why I think that, you know, the women there were subjugated to the kind of behavior and harassment that they were. And there wasn't really a place to like check them for that.
Right. To me personally, this seemed like a high school locker room situation where anything flies. Everyone's doing crazy stuff. Nobody's really around to check them, you know, stuff like that. Like this. You know what? You read like the Reddit posts, and I half expected Dan Snyder to have like a UFO or something, or like the code to like Area 51 or the secrets that are held there. But no, like in reality, what happened is terrible and shouldn't have gone on. But this was so much less significant than what people were reporting. I mean, it was like, I don't know, that we could have a conversation about that too. It's like, how does the ball get rolling with Discord to Twitter to Reddit? I don't understand how something like that. Well, I guess it's just word of mouth, but I don't even know how it starts. Like, cause I thought that on Discord, it had been started by someone within the organization. So at the least, that means someone in the organization, you know, maybe for good reason, doesn't like it there and wanted to start something and see if he could rattle some chains or get something going, get some sort of a movement going. I'm not sure. Do I think it had something to do with the Redskins name change? Sure. Maybe someone, like I said, maybe it was like, oh, this is good timing. Let's just, you know, let's get some balls rolling in the Reddit and da-da-da-da, whatever else. That doesn't also explain the Washington Post article. The timeline for me is kind of murky. I don't know.
Yeah, the Washington Post had first received and started writing and gathering like all this information and complaints 2 years ago. So it just happened to be even more like interesting that this happened to be the time to, you know, that they were able to kind of release it. Amidst like all the other information that was going on within their organization. I like it just, while they're going through a name change, this is just like obviously another headache that Dan Snyder has to deal with. It will just be interesting to see through this investigation, being an internal one, someone that they hired that's supposed to look through and like look for the culture. I can't see that Dan Snyder would essentially be incriminating himself in that regard. If they're going to hire someone to look through. Yeah, but I'm like, does the NFL respond after a 14-year period of these complaints and happening? Dan Snyder's owned the team since 1999, from 2006 to 2020, and it's 14 years of this going on and being reported and nothing happened. And even though, again, Dan Snyder himself was not implemented, just from the standpoint of the longevity of which it happened and him being oblivious to that, is that a point in which he has to sell the team? Is that going to be something where people come after him? I mean, he's not a well-liked owner as is, right. But like, will this be something to like get people over the hump enough to be like, hey, like, you need to sell the team. Like, right. we're making you sell the team. The NFL can make him sell, like, just based on literally the 14 years it happened, and he apparently had no idea, even though he's the captain of the ship, so to say.
Well, yeah, I don't buy that. I don't buy that he had no idea that this was going on, and I'd wager so far as to say that there's probably other occurrences of this within other clubs in the NFL.
Even in sports.
Yeah, in sports.
I mean, the Dallas Mavericks, this happened with, and Cuban like went out of his way to like fire everyone like involved in stuff, obviously, because I think it's a little bit different situation where like Cuban, I feel like, is more of like a well-liked owner,
right?
And kind of like people like care about his personality and stuff, whereas everything with Snyder, you can't really say the same. And then also with this whole name change blowing up, and no one felt like the name change was genuine, rightfully so, because it was literally, he in 2013 never going to change the name of the Redskins. And then, he has all these people backing out that would cost him a lot financially, which is why he's finally forced to change it. So, just even that is just kind of despicable. You have all these people just like clamoring and wanting change for him. The whole thing with, just Washington team, it will be interesting to see if this will be enough for, him to be pushed to sell the team. I mean, the minority owners already were buying, they hired a group to help them sell their stakes, because I think that they believed that this would be bad enough. But yeah, I don't know. I really don't know what the outcome of this would be, but that's like why you got to see and let these things marinate for a bit.
Play out.
But I, in my opinion, if you have that go on for that long time, like for that amount of time and this many women, but that's what I mean. It's not just one woman. For having like 14 other women, along with Miss Applegate, come out about this and their complaints, and listing very similarly like the same people, and these are people that are higher ups in the organization. How could you not notice this? Even she said in the article herself that Bruce Allen, who's the Redskins president for the longest time, who just got fired this past offseason, like, would see him crying at her desk multiple times. You're not just going to sit there and question why. You're just going to sit there and watch someone cry and not like ask why. Like, to at least Bruce Allen to know, to anyone else, like, it's I find it very hard to believe.
It's a culture
literally
of complacency.
Yeah, but I'm saying even from the standpoint of him just promoting the passive aggressive culture, letting it happen, like, I can't really say that I myself am like that
thrilled in the owner's seat.
Well, I mean, I already thought that he was, even not. I can't imagine how former Redskins fans feel, Washington fans feel just about him, because they already hate him as is. But like, after this, I just feel like his, likeliness just continues to decline. You would already thought you would hit rock bottom, but
hang up the gloves. I feel like that's something the culture of complacency extends to the football that the Redskins play. Before I even knew about any of this, before I even knew about Dan Snyder, because I don't watch Washington that closely as a football team, I knew for a fact that the way they organize things, and shout out to Urinating Tree, he was on the show, episode 12, he was talking about it, he detailed it, that's the way they play football too. Their entire team aura is just one of complacency. That's the only way to put it. It's complacency. Like you said, it's a locker room culture. It's a see something, say nothing kind of team. And it shows up in the football that they played because it was present in the organization that was run. It was internal and it was external. Simple as that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they've had a lot of problems over the years, with numerous stuff, regardless whether it be on or off the football field. But yeah, just like that, walking into that culture every day and that kind of being the environment that both, like I know you were saying from like high school, like locker room, like kind of environment. Okay, so it's a high school locker room environment, but with women, that don't want to. Like women should not be subjugated to any of that at all, ever, like at any time. That's never appropriate. But for guys to just go out of their way to act like, this is a doghouse where you can just like touch and harass women as you please is just, very like, it's just gross. It's just, the same it's not wanted anywhere.
Right. I think it's the same in every corporate environment too. Like this extends farther than I'm sure sport. I'm sure it goes into big budget.
You would hope not every corporate environment, but I could definitely see this being the case in a bunch of different organizations, regardless of football, sports, you name it. It's the patriarchy of Americans, and it should never be this way. And, sexism has been a problem, continues to be a problem. And, it's little stuff like this that you hope eventually will one day push the pinnacle to the point where you really can make change and you do see a dramatic difference. But, if you don't respond with kind of removing the people that were the problems of this, like the whole debacle and whole issue in the first place, if you're not going to remove the people that oversat and like let this happen for this, how as a woman would you even be like, wow, like I can sit here and like why that would feel like they are just invalidating everything that you're looking for. And so like if I were a woman, would I want to work for the
that's what I'm saying. Like if you're a woman, think for a second, if you're a woman coming out of college, right, and you're considering going into the NFL, you're considering going into the corporate world, and then you see and hear stories like that where it's like, oh yeah, if you want to go into, say, I don't know, I've heard a lot about Viacom in the past couple of weeks. We'll get into that in a little bit. Viacom, if you want to go into the higher ups of Viacom, you're going to get your ass touched 4 or 5 times a day. You're going to get called a slut, like a whore, like shut up, you bitch, like stuff like that. Like that would immediately, for me, if I was a woman, deter me from going in, obviously. So like you said, we need to get some of the higher ups that are doing this out. My only question would be, it's like, how do you get, it's like almost like a cancer, like once cancer spreads, it's hard to, you know what I mean? It's hard to extract. So if this is, and I don't know the scale of what's going on here, I'm only assuming, because for me, it's like big budget corporations and the higher ups and those, I kind of view them as corrupt. That's my stigma around big budget guys, or, guys at the top of their respective businesses. That's not always the case. I'll admit that, but I'm interested to see the scope of how much this is going on. Is it numerous? Is it not so numerous?
Well, that's what I mean. Is this going to create a domino effect for other organizations where you could start to see other people speaking out against other atrocities that have happened in other, I think that it would start more so first in the sports world. So you would see, would women that work for other professional teams end up speaking out, and will this create just like an overblown effect where, like a lot of ownership removal and stuff is going to happen in the league and changing. And, and you were talking about like, how do you stop almost like this cancer from spreading in a way? A great thing that you could be able to do, is just honestly, instead of, for a bunch of those different positions and, places where the men have been and, were working and in charge, hire a woman. Because then like there could be something that can just end up like completely negating and helping, at least in the process of deterring things like that happening in the future. So that could end up being something that NFL teams might have to think of. I mean, the only woman in recent memory that I can really think of that was really considered was really considered for like a head position in the front office was Condoleezza Rice. As their potential GM. So, but besides that, you don't really see like any women like having like that much, like getting promoted or even thought about for positions like that, which might be, to stop things like this happening might be, a course of action that needs to be taken. Who knows?
Having a woman in that dominant of a position could open up a whole realm of possibilities too, because if you think about the genetic, well, not even the genetic makeup, but I'm saying like the minds of men and women, there are some differences there. Perhaps there are some doors that a male GM wouldn't be able to open. Say there's like, I'm not trying to be sexist, and I want people to understand what I'm saying, but there are certain things that I do believe a woman could clock that a man necessarily couldn't clock. You know what I mean? There's some certain eventuality. Yeah, do you know what I mean? Like, it just opens, there's different doors that get opened up when you start to let, like you said, women into positions of power. Now, I wanted to ask, there is an assistant woman's head coach, right? Correct? In the NFL? Or am I not remembering correctly?
No, you are for the San Francisco 49ers.
Right. Yeah. Okay. That's what I was thinking of. I thought you were talking about, coaches. But
she works on the defensive side. I just cannot remember her name at the moment.
But yeah, no.
But there is.
I think, like you said, it could be very like a whole new experience, a whole new, like I said, a bunch of doors, a bunch of possibilities open that we haven't seen yet, simply because it's a male-dominated sport. And I'm all for women getting into these positions of power so far as they're qualified and they're willing to put in the work to make a team great. Say we get a women's GM for Cleveland, like you said, and Cleveland is like all of a sudden flipped on its head and it's a Super Bowl, a playoff contender. Like, we don't know yet because it's never happened.
But no, it's true. I mean, the most dominant women that I can even think of, or woman that I can even think of in sports, is Jeannie Buss, the owner of the Lakers. She obviously inherited the team from her father, but she is like the forefront and the one that's making all the decisions on, how the Lakers could be successful and who she can hire. Rob Pelinka is in GM. She tried to get Magic to obviously help recruit LeBron, so on and so forth. But besides her, you have the Alice Dollar that owns the Chicago Bears.
Yeah.
But I mean, she's at 9. That's what passed down from her dad, but she's also 95. So
that's what I remember. Yeah.
She's not really managing stuff. But, I think if you gave women more of the opportunity in that regard, I think that they could do as good, or if not better, job than any of the, the men that are currently involved. It doesn't necessarily, you don't have to be a man to know about football. Right. You could be anything. You could be any gender you want to. And all you need to know is, obviously to just have knowledge about the game. And, looking at it from such a sexist point of view, I think just will only, from any sports, will only just hurt the sport rather than help it.
And also, I mean, if you think about the emotional side of things, is that something that gets taken into account for a lot of, let's say, draft boards? No. Is that something that could be looked into further? Again, I'm not saying that women are, there's always this little thing with women that's like, oh, they're so emotional. I'm not saying that. I'd say that.
I mean, but that's just being stereotypical and sexist. So.
Right, but I'm just, I think there is, I do believe, a greater amount of emotional intelligence in women than men. So I'm saying, just I'm trying to illustrate one of those doors that could be opened. This is all just, we don't know yet. But like you said, there have been other, obviously, examples of women in ownership positions. So we just open up the floodgates, and like you said, maybe the rest will follow.
Yeah. Maybe no, I mean, it doesn't even need. Yeah. Even just scouting departments, which is one of the guys that was accused of the harassment was part of. It doesn't even have to be necessarily general man, the guys that are getting accused and in trouble with this harassment were people, someone that was high up in the scouting department, someone that was, the longtime radio talk show, host or whatever. Who's to say, a woman, is not as qualified to do those jobs, even putting it, replacing them there, just promoting, that type of culture. And, I think it would just, could potentially create quite a difference in a more accepting and better environment for sure.
That'd be rad to see a woman in like in a I'm trying to think of like a commentation role.
That would no, not even that. Just I mean, scouting department, voiceovers,
really anything.
Yeah, no, just obviously just promoting more of that in that workspace. So, but yeah, no, Washington's got a lot of things to figure out soon. We'll see what ends up happening with them and what ends up happening with Snyder and this whole investigation. But that will be for one of your later podcasts.
Yeah,
because that's all the information that we got as of now. So.
Yeah, I thought they were going to drop the new name. They said they would on. You said it was Monday, right? Or in the upcoming.
I believe so, but then that fan trademarking all the potential names, so that he could. Genius move, dude. Talking about being steps ahead.
Yeah.
So he'll either end up try to get some compensation for that, or we'll try to figure out one way that he can help. But that was a bold move.
Big brain move.
Gotta respect that. Yeah, it was.
All right. Do we want to move on to? Okay, let's see. We got a slew of topics, but I think you as a Patriots fan, we should do you the service of talking about Cam to the Patriots.
Here we go.
Will there be a QB controversy? Jarrett Stidham, Cam Newton sitting there on the QB depth chart. Take us away.
I love that you don't even include Brian Hoyer. I think that's great.
I don't know. I don't go that deep because I don't know. You know what I mean? Like,
no, not even that. Brian Hoyer's such like a, NFL journeyman. Fine backup QB if you want to have him there, but even as a Patriots fan, seeing him come back, I pray to God that he just will not end up being our our starting quarterback. Just through it all. I would be happy with Stidham if he does well, but having Cam definitely adds this intriguing excitement going into the season that we necessarily did not feel with Stidham, only again because everyone says that we don't know what he is. But Cam to Oh yeah, no, I know, but people haven't really seen him professionally.
Right, that's true.
That's. I mean, people haven't really seen him play pro ball because Brady was still there and stuff. So, but having Cam, I was watching your other podcast before with Jerry, with some of the stuff that he was talking about, and I know that he had mentioned that Cam, hasn't done as much over the past 3 years. I mean, he was hurt at the beginning of last year from an injury that he got from actually playing the Patriots in preseason.
Right.
So he wasn't 100%. But in 2018, Cam went 6-2, was having stats very close to, if not better, than his MVP year. So if we can even get 2018 Cam without the injury, that to me is more than enough.
Right.
My expectations going into this year are, the AFC East is even harder than what it would, be before, from what it was before. The Dolphins have immensely improved. They took players from the Pats. Brian Flores is there, and they got players elsewhere, getting Byron Jones at safety from the Cowboys with Xavier Howard. They have one of the best secondaries in the league. That duo alone, they're the highest paid duo, but they're going to be crazy. Having them now having a secondary that can compete with the Patriots is scary. I think that Flores is a great coach. Obviously, Tua is their own injury question mark, which they're trying to figure out. But them also getting Matt Breida for a 5th round pick and getting Jordan Howard also as a running back. The Dolphins now have solid veteran running backs. Devontae Parker has really stepped it up. So they're going to be an interesting team. Buffalo, Josh Allen's got an arm. Yeah. He's great.
They were pretty solid last year. Buffalo was I think
making the playoffs
correctly. They crumbled late, right?
Yeah, no, they were beating the Texans. They were up 16-3, I think was their big lead. And then they ended up blowing it.
Yeah.
But then Desean also made that crazy play where they should have sacked him, and he ended up sneaking out and throwing a little 5-10 yard out. Then ended up, running on the ball all the way down to the 10. So, the Buffalo alone getting Stephon Diggs, massive. Huge for them. Devin Singletary coming back and having like a fully healthy season will be great for them. Even like their defense is just great, as is Sean McDermott's like a great coach to be able to like help them out. On the defensive side of the ball, perfect fit, perfect guy for Buffalo. They have a great staff. As much as I say it for the other team in the division, the Jets, you want my opinion on them, I think they have the talent to do it.
Yeah.
I think Sam Darnold's talented. Le'Veon Bell,
100%.
Unbelievable that he was not rated like a top 10 running back, in my opinion, from Madden, because he is. This is the guy 2 years ago that was the best running and catching back in the league. It's not like he got worse. It's just the system in which he's playing in just does not necessarily like help him. It does not like give him like the opportunity to put his skills on display, in my opinion. The whole issue with the Jets is Gase. I just don't think Gase is the right guy. I don't think that, they should have like kept him after this year. I would have like tried to like, fire him and find someone else that you can have that could have worked with Sam Darnold. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. The fact that the Chiefs offensive coordinator got no looks and is still like their offensive, how? You have the Super Bowl winning team and their offensive coordinator doesn't even get like, what is that? Like, what is that? Like, and I'm just saying from like all like different respects, like to me, just that alone was crazy. But that could have been a guy that could have like, ended up like helping them out.
Here's my real quick. Allow me to. I know you're.
Go ahead. No, I just want to give my AFC East
Sports Center James. No, I'll like in a second. I just think, and let me know if I'm incorrect here, but it seemed to me like the Jets last year, like you said, they have a decent amount of talent. Last year they had what I thought to be a pretty solid defense, right? But
yeah, I mean, C.J. Mosley was hurt for almost the entire year, which sucked because that was like their big free agent signing. But I mean, Jamal Adams is one of, if not the best safety in the game, as is.
That's what I was gonna say. It seems like last year, it wasn't really even like a Cowboys situation. It was more just like a bad luck type of thing, because I remember early on, Sam Darnold was it mono?
Yep.
And then afterwards, he had that absolutely horrific game. I think it was versus the Patriots, where he said he was seeing ghosts.
That was against the Pats, yeah.
I can't even imagine what that did for his confidence. Must have just been out the door from that point on. And that's where I think the Jets kind of fell off. This is in my memory as like I said, like an amateur NFL fan. But like that's what, to me, it seemed like with the Jets last year, was that they had a decent shot, considering, everyone likes to say that the conference they're in is or the division, excuse me.
It's top heavy. Top heavy. Yeah, no, the division is the AFC East has been dominated by the Pats except for 2 years in like the last 20.
So that was like, a lot of people thought they might have a shot. A lot of people were also pretty high on Buffalo for good reason. But, after a little bit, it seems like the Jets kind of just fell off. I don't know. So like you said, like it's the division this year too is going to be, I think, if you want
the Dolphins. Actually, in my opinion, the Dolphins probably need a year to kind of marinate to try to figure it out. I expect them to be decent, but not like great. Whereas Buffalo's had that time,
right,
to kind of like get it together. So I mean, for Buffalo, for my, like in my mind, in my opinion, is the favorite. Just again with the like lack of turnover. It's still the same team. They're a well-oiled machine. If anything, they improved this offseason, whereas the Patriots are obviously dealing with some turnover. As a result, we don't know what quarterback's going to be like. We lost a decent amount of defensive players, that ended up like Danny Sheldon either going to the Lions, Jamie Collins also leaving. We had like Van Noy also going to the Dolphins. So having all these different people like leave, who are solid contributors and stuff to the defense. I don't think we're going to be in bad shape, but with the 7-team playoff format that will come into this year, obviously assuming that all of this will happen without, with coronavirus going on, who knows? But I think that the Pats still are at least playoff contenders. I would not, like, just because of the turnover would not say that they're the favorites, but I playoffs without the Patriots, even as a wild card, would be very, very hard for me to imagine, especially in the top-heavy AFC East.
What are your predictions for, let's do the division and then the conference? I'm pretty sure you already said, but just for the viewers at home, recap it one time for the one time.
No, sure. So, for the AFC East, is, because I'm a Patriots fan, so, that's kind of what I'm focusing on. I think that the Bills will end up winning it, but not by much, maybe by like a game or two. We're still in the 16-game season at this point, so it'd be like, I could see them winning it at 10-6, 11-5. I mean, the AFC East also has the toughest schedule out of all the divisions, so that's going to play a factor. I could see the Pats sneaking in at also a 10-6, something like that. And then, I would go out on a limb just because I really don't have any faith in Gase that I could see Miami coming ahead of the Jets in the division one way or another, just because, I believe in Flores and think that, they're a decent squad and they have talent. They just have to kind of figure out how to work with it together.
Right.
In my opinion, the Jets have the talent, just not the coaching.
Okay.
So I think that that's what's going to kind of set them back. But, for me, at least in the AFC side of things, Chiefs are the team to beat. Until I know Baltimore easily has the most talent all around, but for whatever, they can't beat the Chiefs. They can't do it.
Right.
They haven't been able to do it in regular season. Mahomes just finds a way to win.
Well,
and again, he got paid that way.
We'll get into that in a second. I was figuring out a way to segue into that.
Sure,
we'll talk.
But no, but there are a bunch of different threats in the AFC. Again, it will be probably, I could see the Ravens and the Chiefs duking it out again for those top two spots.
That's gonna be must-win.
What's that? Oh yeah, no, it already was. Even with this, I don't really. Bill O'Brien is not necessarily a bad coach, but a tragic GM with all the moves that he made. So, the Texans will still be in the playoffs in my opinion, but I don't know. The Titans can end up giving them a run for their money for the division. The Jags will be.
They just signed what's his name? The running back.
Derrick Henry.
Yeah,
Derrick Henry to a 4-year, $50 million extension. So that was a great addition to keep him on.
Great to see him getting paid.
Yeah, because that's not common for a lot of running backs. I mean, after I saw them pick Tannehill at first and just tagged Henry, I was kind of feeling bad because I was like, well, this is a guy that literally won you playoff games.
That's what I was gonna say.
And he's not getting rewarded for it. So, it will be interesting to see what ends up happening in that division. I don't think the Colts are good enough to make it to the playoffs, even with Phillip Rivers being there now. I would hope they just kind of, that Andrew Luck decision just kind of screwed them up for a little while, which is just too bad. I would go out on a whim on kind of a hot take to say that the Titans will end up upsetting the Texans to win the AFC South. I really think that, they have the, I mean, who knows with all these predictions, but I could see that end up being the case. But, the Ravens will win in the North and the Chiefs will win. And then the wild card spots, I mean, I didn't even talk about the AFC West as much, but I mean, the Raiders will be very interesting to see. I mean, they're still kind of developing there. Everyone thinks that Denver is really locked and loaded with the amount that John Elway went out and spent on the offense when in the draft, but maybe he neglected the defense too much.
Right.
And the Chargers are going to be a bit of a work in progress with Justin Herbert just getting into the mix. But at least for the wild card predictions, because I said the Bills would win, I would have to put the Pats in one of those spots. The Steelers have never had a losing record with Mike Tomlin, and I don't think that's going to start now. So I could easily see. Yeah, no, and Juju will be back healthy. Yeah. Roethlisberger will be there. James Conner will be healthy.
Right.
I could put the Steelers easily in one of those spots. And let me think for one of those I guess I'd have to put the Texans.
How'd you feel about the DeAndre Hopkins trade?
Come on, man. This is part of what I was talking about with Bill O'Brien. Fine coach, but My God.
My goodness.
I don't think there's anyone in the I don't think you could find anyone in the world that would say that, oh yeah, like
that was a good trade.
Texans got the better deal out of this. Yeah. Unless like DeAndre Hopkins like has a career-ending injury, God forbid. If he did, that would be like the only way in which I see the Texans winning this deal. I don't get it, dude. I really don't. You know, that was like to get it, past his prime and injured David Johnson and a 2nd and 4th round pick for him. If I were, the Cardinals GM and I heard that, I would just be like, yeah, no, absolutely. Hung up and fucking laughed. Like I would have just, no, I just would have been like, what? No, absolutely. And then
you don't even have to hear the rest of the deal.
I believe what Bill O'Brien just fucking gave us. Like that's literally what my reaction would be. Literally, just got D-Hop for fucking nothing.
Yeah.
Like, they have Kenyon Drake. They don't even need David Johnson. That's like where I'm like, dude, like, but that's at least or no, go ahead.
Yeah, I said it was going to be like the scene from The Wolf on Wall Street. Like, he just hangs up the phone and everyone's
that's
going crazy.
That's literally what it would be like. Yeah, where you're just selling this guy like nothing but bullshit.
Just con artist.
He just believes it. Yeah. That's literally what it was. I would have felt like I got away with murder.
Yeah.
Like that's literally. But yeah, that's at least my for AFC predictions. I'll go off enough to say, like, I don't want to take up too much time. I think the Chiefs will, like, in a normal circumstance, would repeat. I know that might be like the favorite and like easy. They're just too good. Mahomes is still on that deal. They're keeping all their pieces. He is the best quarterback I've ever seen, and obviously we're going to talk about some of his extensions and stuff like that. He's just going to kill it. NFC, always a slaughterhouse. You have no idea at any time what's going to happen.
Yeah.
When it comes to the NFC North, I could see the Packers falling off a bit because they didn't really address what they needed to.
Yeah.
And I could honestly see the Vikings ending up winning that division. But I also think that Matt LaFleur has kind of been more of an overrated coach. I mentioned this on your last podcast. I don't think he's bad, but I don't think he's as great as people are making him out to be. And obviously with Rodgers kind of being in a pissy situation with not getting what he needed and then knowing that Jordan Love's going to be there, kind of just creates some friction. So I don't necessarily see them repeating as the division winners. I would go out to say the Vikings would. The Lions, sadly, in my opinion, just with Matt Patricia, don't have it. I just don't think that they're like enough to like make some noise. As much, thanks for any like good player that's ever been on or been like on Detroit's team. They just produce like Hall of Fame, if not elite level talent, and they just can't do anything with it. The Bears, I want the best for them, but with Trubisky and Foles, the fact that that's their QB battle, I really think that they're still a talented roster that has a good defense, but
the QB
that's just shaky.
He's more of a situational quarterback, right? Like, he's not really suited for. I mean, I guess he'd make for a good backup if you need him in key spots, but I don't know.
I just don't. Foles' magic came and left with Philly. As soon as I saw the Jags sign him to that like monstrous 4-year, $88 million deal, I was like, God, like that's just a terrible situation for them. They're better off. No, but not even that. No. I mean, that's not as hilarious as like the Bill O'Brien like trade, but still not good. But they were able, to kind of get rid of that. Luckily, they were able to trade them to the Bears. So, I just picking Foles over a Cam Newton makes no sense to me, personally. But yeah, I could see the Vikings winning, and I would go enough to say I could see the Packers blowing it and not even making it to the playoffs. So I think the Vikings would be the division winner from there. Then, I mean, you have the NFC West, who's the most stacked and crazy division in football. I think that San Francisco is still good, but they're going to be at it with Seattle for that top spot. The Rams just have like way too many issues, and I don't think that Goff is like elite enough to bring them over the top in a way. But even the Cardinals are going to be improving, so that division's just going to be a slaughterhouse. As it has been the past couple of years, but now it's just going to be even more crazy with stuff. But I would say that I could see the San Fran winning again, Seahawks being a wild card. Maybe the Rams. Maybe.
Is Goff to me, he's kind of a bang average quarterback.
He is, but he kind of got figured. He and McVay kind of got figured out this year, so they have to kind of rewrite what they're doing a little bit, and then not having Todd Gurley now is interesting, and then their whole wide receiver tree, with being Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp being the guys because they got rid of Cooks, like that in its own right is interesting also. So I don't really know. They still have, in my opinion, the best defensive player in the league in Aaron Donald, because that guy is just an absolute savage.
He trains with knives.
I saw it. He's unbelievable. But I think they're good enough to at least still be. They were almost a playoff team last year. I could see them still doing it again. But I mean, the NFC is just absolutely insane. I think the Giants, moving on to the NFC East, Giants will have a little bit of struggle with kind of adapting to a new coach, new system. That's natural. They're going to take some time with stuff, so I don't expect them to make some noise. I have when it comes to the Washington football team, I really don't think Haskins is the guy. I think he was very overhyped and valued at Ohio State. So I would even say that I just don't see them going anywhere. The Eagles were really, really banged up last year, but with them coming back healthy, I think that you could easily say that they're a wild card. And I actually have a lot of faith with the Cowboys under McCarthy that they could win the division, having everything together, because their team is just so talented. As I said in your last podcast, they've always been. Oh yeah, I mean they still lost Byron Jones, but my God, is that team still just unbelievable?
How'd you feel about Dak asking for Pat Mahomes level money?
Well, I mean, so the original things that they were saying.
Oh yeah,
by the end,
he paid that, right?
No. They were saying that he was close to signing a deal between what they offered him, which was the 33 to 35, which is what he should have been paid, in my opinion, and what he was worth when he was asking for more. Like, he's not Patrick Mahomes. He is not even close. He would have gotten paid the same as Russell Wilson, essentially, at least in per year annually. He would have gotten paid the same essentially as Russell Wilson, and he's not that. Yeah. So, that alone is kind of like, all right, well, he could have gotten paid this, paid that. Blah, blah,
I thought there was a rumor going around that he was purportedly supposed to make Pat Mahomes numbers. I don't know if
the same guys that wrote that Reddit train on how bad we thought the Redskins fallout was going to be probably wrote that report.
Probably, yeah. I just remember something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, no, because all the reports were saying from the original money that the Cowboys were trying to give him in the first place, which was between the 33 to 35 annually, which again is like, I think, especially with how Mahomes reset the market, would have been a very fair price and deal for him. But yeah, no, that's kind of, it sucks that they weren't able to get it done, especially when you see all these other extensions going on. Yeah. It's kind of just a shame, but but even just to wrap, because I realized I didn't do the NFC South as the fast part of that recap or whatever. But yeah, I could even see like the Saints are still unbelievable, with Drew Brees. He might be falling off a bit, but even the talent that's just there, they're great. Panthers will take a little bit to reset and stuff, getting Bridgewater there, so they're gonna kind of be. I know the people are saying the Bucs are going to be like a playoff team. I don't, even with Brady and Gronk there. Yeah, I do, dude. They're at best a wild card in my opinion, because the NFC is hard. Even at this point now, just because of like how I feel, this is not like, I obviously love Brady, think that he's incredible, and obviously did more for the Patriots, even as a Patriots. Brought me more joy than anyone could have ever, along with Belichick, than could have ever as a sports fan. I after watching him this past year, really didn't think that he was, like, in my opinion, it was the worst I saw him play in his entire career. So I kind of just see him declining. I really think that they're just an overhyped team.
You don't think with the weapons around him? Because I know for a fact that even in my amateur football following, I know that wide receivers can elevate quarterbacks, and then also vice versa. So you don't think with all those, I mean, he's got a ridiculous amount.
Yeah, he does with OJ Howard, Cameron Brate, Gronk, Evans, Godwin. You know, they obviously just because they're going to take time to gel, and then just that division alone is just going to be coming. You have to play, you know, like that Panthers front, and then coming, you know, Cameron Jordan facing him twice a year with stuff. You know, even like the Falcons. You know, kind of like, you know, where he has to face like Keanu O'Neal and like everyone that's coming from that deep. Like, I don't know. I would go off, you know, just to say that I could see them missing it. You know, I really could, which might be, you know, like, how could you, you know, even watching the guy for so long. And, you know, I know Bruce Arians like works magic with veteran quarterbacks, but, you know, I just, you know, I really, you know, it sounds bad, but, you know, I'm really questioning at this point. Beforehand it wasn't until kind of the Rams Super Bowl that I was kind of like, ooh, like the Rams Patriots Super Bowl, that I was kind of like, you know, this might be it type of deal. And then after watching him this year, I was just like, damn, like I really think that he's fallen off and he's not, you know, what he was, which I mean happens when you're that age. And it's nothing against him, but you know, I just can't even imagine them as like a Super Bowl contender
That's coming from
or
a
anything of the
fan. That's how you know it's
which is not a lot, dude. A lot of people would not admit that. You know, they think that he's going to go off and like kill it elsewhere. I think that that's an unpopular opinion, at least amongst Patriots fans, in my opinion. But yeah, no, I still think that the Saints would win the division and everything. But yeah, the Falcons, you know, they gave Dan Quinn another year, and they actually had like a really like solid end of the year where they were winning a lot of their games. I wanted it to happen last year, but didn't. But could see them kind of bouncing back this year, even. But I don't know. You know, my playoff picture there would be Saints winning the NFC South, Cowboys winning the NFC East, Vikings winning the North, and then in the West it would be the 49ers. But the Seahawks would be in the playoffs, in my opinion. The Eagles, and I know I was saying the Rams before because I could see them, but maybe just with all the division stuff, it could be hard for that last wild card spot. You know, I might go crazy enough to just go a little bit crazy with this to say the Falcons. You know, even over the Bucks, which would be kind of wild, but I don't know. Someone tells me that they're really hungry and like revamp to try to get after it and prove it, and Dan Quinn's going to be going all out for that last year. But who I could see emerging victorious. All right, you know what? I'll go crazy when it comes to like NFC stuff. You know, because I was like thinking about this. I could see this being the year that Dallas makes it, but they don't win it.
Okay.
I really think that they're talented enough to get there.
That crazy.
No, but that you're usually, you know, Jason Garrett was there. They were never. I mean, they won 2 playoff games in his tenure.
Yeah, I know.
I could see them. Yeah, but I could see them fully with like a Mike McCarthy team. And even though Dak, like, I feel like Dak's just gonna really like try to go out there and prove it. You know, I'll go crazy enough to say that I could see Dallas at least making there, but I don't think that they would beat Kansas City. You know, I for some reason the Saints, if the Saints run into the Vikings, they're losing because they just can't beat them for whatever reason. I don't know why. But yeah, no, these are, you know, some wild playoff predictions that I might have.
Sports Center James over there.
No, dude, you know, you gotta take some crazy risks with stuff. So
I mean,
I would go off enough to say that.
Where's the fun with just going?
Who knows, man? A season might not even happen in the first place. So I could just say that I'm a genius, and no one would ever be able to tell me otherwise.
Well, that's the thing too. It's like there's a difference between doing what you're doing and doing what ESPN does, where ESPN will have Max Kellerman go up and say with a straight face that between Steph Curry and Iguodala, Martians have the death ray on Earth. He wants Iguodala taking the last shot. You're not doing that. Yeah. You have statistics to back you up, and prior knowledge as a devoted NFL fan, and prior knowledge.
I mean, but even saying like them being a first-year team with McCarthy to be able to go out and do. I mean, I just know because McCarthy is a Super Bowl winning coach, and I do think that he has like the talent and stuff to kind of like bring them to. They are just so talented that I could just see them getting there. Especially Dak's just going to want to go all out to prove it. Not even necessarily for the Cowboys, like because who knows, he could just like try and go out and like, you know, after this year, just ball out and be like, look, if you guys don't pay me someone else should. And like then someone else would like go out and take that risk. So just like all those factors combined, I could see them kind of all meshing together. But if they lose, which again I can't see the Chiefs being upset. Chiefs Ravens, it's gonna be a battle, between them at the top. But yeah, I still think that I could see the Chiefs winning. But with that being said, that's a great segue into Patty Mahomes.
Yeah. Do we want to take a little break because we are reaching the hour mark here? We could go into the
dude. Yeah, no. Take a break and then we'll come back talking about some. We already brought up the Dak deal, so now it's going into the Patty deal.
Right. Open up the market. Okay, guys. Yeah. You'll see future Coop doing an anchor deal, an anchor ad, and when we come back, like we said, Pat Mahomes and much, much more to come. Stay strapped in, guys. So, guys, you want to be successful. You want to have the podcast of your dreams. You want to make money off of this. Well, I can tell you firmly that the best way to do this is Anchor. Okay, I used to be on Buzzsprout, the Voldemort of podcast hosting services, he who shall not be named. I switch over to Anchor. I have the ability to get connected with sponsors, to be making money off every episode. It's great. It's simple. You don't have that weird cancellation thing after a month that Buzzsprout does where one day all of your podcast episodes are gone. It's simple. It's easy. It's intuitive. All my friends that are into podcasting use it. Go check out Anchor. All right. Trust me. If you're trying to make it in the business, it's the route to go. Wish I had started out that way. All right, guys. Back to the episode. All right. Second half of the show. We're back. We're here. We're ready to talk about that Mahomes mega deal. Record breaking. Something that someone told me in the YouTube comments I was incorrect about. So I'm going to, as all natural sports commentators do, double down on it because that's what we do. You know what I'm saying? So let's get into it.
Respect.
I guess, yeah, right? I guess I'll get your take first because, as I said, I covered it on my other podcasts. So
Yeah, which I had listened to also. Yeah. So the one thing that I thought that after even listening to your other podcast, the one thing that I found to be like kind of interesting where I was trying to figure out, whether or not like just a point that I think that could have been made about like the whole thing. The one thing that made the Mahomes thing, even with the injury clause, so interesting to me was the length of time. If you look at like past NFL deal, I mean, because he still is on like his rookie salary this upcoming one, so it does not come into effect in 2020. It comes in 2021. Is when he starts getting the big bucks. Just even as great as he is, even with his he's accomplished so much at such a young age, only being 24. The biggest deals, there have been 6 contracts that have been like huge in NFL history that have been like for a long time for like, a lot of money, like a Donovan McNabb, like 12-year extension, just like crazy ones like that. No one ever really lives it out to the absolute end.
That's what I was going to say. That was the problem I had with it. He's going to be extraordinarily old by the time this thing is done.
Yeah, no. He'll be, 11? So he'll be 35.
Yeah.
Who knows if he's still going to be with the Chiefs then? Who knows if he's going to be like his elite? I think if there were a deal that we could work for them both, personally, I would have been more of like a 7-year person. Down the middle if you wanted to make it so that he was like if you wanted to keep him for a long time, still break records with it, but then also like, not long enough where, even like that 3 years where he could get into 35 and stuff, he could still be great, but, do you extend him then? I get it from the longevity standpoint, but, if he gets hurt, or he gets injured.
That's what I was saying on my other one. It's like what you can't control some of the intangibles there.
Yeah, with the amount, the 477 million guaranteed, it just is like, ooh, I don't know. He got hurt, week 1 and week 4 this past year, was out for a decent amount of time, then obviously came back. Obviously you don't want to see it because he is a generational talent and, he was worth all of that. But I don't know if the years to me was just kind of like, I don't know, kind of a little shaky.
Like talking about the years aspect and how old he's going to be coming out the back end of this deal. To me, and obviously you would be more qualified to talk about this, so feel free to disagree with me and tell me if I'm being delusional here. To me, I could see one of the potential realities with this being like an Aaron Rodgers situation where we see he doesn't have any weapons around him. He's still considered good, but he doesn't have, because, obviously there's going to be a lot of contracts on the team expiring, like Tyreek Hill, Sammy Watt, like all those guys, their contracts are going to be, or they're going to be going into free agency around 2021, 2022, 2023. What will he be left with? Sure, he's Pat Mahomes, but are we going to see like I said, Aaron Rodgers? Like, are we going to see that situation?
Yeah.
That's something I had a question about.
Tyreek was supposed to get that huge extension before the whole rumor came out with him abusing his kid.
Yeah.
Type deal, and also him abusing like his girlfriend and at that time. So, but he was due to like get like the $100 million one. Like he was going to be like the big receiver to get the big money. He ended up settling for a little bit less, so he got extended. Tyreek did, so he'll be there at least for a little while. But Sammy Watkins was getting paid like an enormous amount. I don't really expect him to be there in the long-term plans. I don't really know what will end up, happening with Kelsey. You obviously like hope he will stay and stuff. They just paid Chris Jones out, huge money. So they're keeping like the core pieces and stuff. The Honey Badger's there for at least 2 more years and so on. But yeah, no, I mean, I get that completely, especially with the NFL's cap and coronavirus at least hindering it for upcoming season and stuff. It's freaky.
Yeah.
I don't know if this will be something that, will hinder them for this upcoming year. Again, I already said that I think that the Chiefs will win because for this upcoming year, because Mahomes is still in the rookie deal, really doesn't kill them that much.
Right. And he has the $500 million to look forward to. I'd imagine that would affect his gameplay positively too. It's like, hey, listen, I'm getting paid $500 million with $477 million guaranteed. Like, I'm gonna ball out because I'm worth his money.
I don't even think that he would get worse, especially with Andy Reid there and such. I just find them too good at this point. And even what you were saying on your other podcast with him trying to chase Brady at this standpoint, he's definitely going to try. I don't think he'll get there, but I think that it will be at least a scenario where Mahomes will get multiple Super Bowls and will be a Hall of Famer. I think they don't necessarily have to be in a row. These next 2 could be, but I think after that, once his salary kicks in, it's going to be hard for them to retain some of those pieces.
100%. Yeah.
So, I mean, we'll see how good they are by that stage and standpoint. But, I get it, but I think the Hunt family was really taking a large risk and doing it for the 10 years. If it ends up working out for them, which hopefully it does, because I love watching Mahomes play. I think he's phenomenal. Just
ridiculous.
Literally is one of my favorite players to watch in the NFL. Obviously I hope it goes to the best for them, but just history kind of tells us that, I don't necessarily know if it will. And if he will like end up leaving out like the whole time of that contract, but I think at this point,
history tends to repeat itself, excuse me.
Yeah, so we'll see. It really will be one of those things that will be interesting. Obviously, what we were talking about before with the Dak scenario, if he got paid that amount of money, would have been fine. I think he would have been okay. And, he wanted to reset the market because he wasn't going to come to Mahomes' money. But then, you think of all these other deals. Now, what is Lamar Jackson going to get paid? What is Deshaun Watson going to get paid? Like, all of this stuff where they'll probably, knowing Bill O'Brien's GM skills, Deshaun Watson will be making like $60 million for 20 years, like annually.
He'll be traded 2 years in.
Yeah, well, no, Bill O'Brien will probably be gone by that point, but then Deshaun will never, like with a contract of that magnitude, he'll never live up to it because, no one can live up to it. That means he would have to win the Super Bowl every year, and he's not going to do that. So, especially with Bill O'Brien, depriving him of the amount of talent that's there.
Also, there could be like a Jay Cutler situation where you get paid money and purportedly you're just like, all right, well, I got this money, I'm guaranteed. Like, I don't, start to take the foot off the accelerator, so to speak.
Yeah. No, that could easily happen. So I don't know. Lamar, will eventually like be worth like a contract similar. I think Lamar Jackson is an unbelievable talent and just crazy, but I don't know if he has like just that mantra and almost just ability that Mahomes does to just literally just change games like that. That's like, I think, just one of the talents that, not that, but I mean, no one else has that. So that's where I'm like, I don't know if, go ahead.
I think he has, and I don't want to like go out on a branch here, or I don't want to go out on a limb here, but one could say he has close to the athletic ability of Mahomes. Maybe close, but not quite there. But I don't think that's that unfair.
He's more of a skilled runner, but he doesn't have the arm. What I was gonna say. He doesn't have the arm that Mahomes does.
The skill comes in with Mahomes, I think.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he could be Mahomes if he had, like you said, a better arm and I think a bit more skill, because to me, Mahomes is like better in the, like he has more awareness, just an overall better handle on the game. That being said, I mean, Lamar Jackson is just ridiculous. Like,
no, he is. But in my opinion, if Mahomes didn't get hurt week 4, which is like when he like kind of like banged up his, I mean, his first 4 games, if you look at Mahomes' first 4 games of the season, he was just torching everyone.
Right.
If he didn't get hurt, you would have seen, like, I think he would have won MVP back-to-back years. Lamar obviously had an unbelievable season and deserved it more than anything, but I think without Mahomes' injury, very, very good chance he would have repeated as MVP, in my opinion. But, it's even like Deshaun Watson's rookie year. I mean, he was setting the league on fire. Obviously when Mahomes was like on the bench and stuff, and then ends up tearing his ACL in practice, like very well could have ended up being like, an MVP candidate that year, easily like rookie of the year. He was fighting with Carson Wentz at that time. Carson Wentz would have won it over Brady if he didn't get hurt. So, that just happened to be a year where the injuries knocked 2 guys that easily could have potentially been in the running for it or won it out of the race, which is why Brady ended up winning it. So, it's just interesting to always see what ends up happening with those MVP races.
It is. It's certainly a lot of talent at quarterback. I will say so. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy. It's ridiculous.
No, it's really crazy. And even what we were talking about before, what will happen with Cam if he falls down on the steal? He'll be able to make $7.5 million at most. Again, I see the Pats being a playoff team. Obviously, because I'm biased, would I love for them to win the Super Bowl with Cam Newton? Absolutely. Do I think that's realistic? No. But that would be really awesome if they had the opportunity and stuff. But even with Cam, if Cam, of course they'd be mad because that's just continuing the dynasty. And that would only just prove Belichick's brilliance with it all. But yeah, I mean, but then it becomes a situation, okay, hypothetically, Cam goes out, if he wins the Super Bowl with the Pats, he's getting paid 7.5 and was on that 1-year deal, then how much do you owe him?
It's true.
And will the Patriots pay that?
Yeah, you never know.
Big questions.
That's what I said. Like you were talking about Bill Belichick's brilliance. We've seen it time and time again, picking up Antonio Brown, picking up Cam Newton on bargain deals.
For one game, though.
Right, like literally, like just like chess, not checkers. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like going out and scouting that D2 guy from Mississippi State or wherever.
Kyle Duggar.
Like when everyone else is at the draft, Belichick was out in the rain. Like he's just, I don't know. He's just, I don't know. That's the only thing I can say. He's a brilliant coach, and he's like Pat Mahomes. He's generational. There's no other way of saying it. You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, but even with that though, we'll see what Duggar ends up happening because I brought this up in your last podcast. Besides Patrick Chung, Belichick weirdly actually has a bat, like he misses on people within the second round. And I mentioned this on your last podcast. So yeah, no, it will be really interesting to see, if this ends up being like a thing that, if Duggar really is the deal. I mean, even getting Adrian Phillips, who's another great special teamer from the Chargers that we were able to pick up with that, ended up being like a big piece for us. So we'll see how good this is. Even a new kicker. I mean, we've had Gostkowski for the past 14 years. Then we draft this. Yeah.
Yeah, well, then he got hurt, but even like having like Rohrwasser, who was not, typical Belichick. He wasn't even on anyone's draft board. No one really knew who he was, and that's now our kicker. It could just be we've had a really good stretch with Belichick's with kickers because we've only literally had Vinatieri or Gostkowski. Besides when they've been hurt, we've obviously had to have replacement kickers.
Right.
So if Rohrwasser just continues this trend, this would be really great. And for all the people that were wondering about Rohrwasser also, he got that 3%ers tattoo removed because I know that was very controversial when he got drafted.
What happened with that?
So,
I never heard about that.
That's a tattoo that there's like a far right alt-right militia group that's like, just basically a bunch of white nationalists that, are like pro-arms and military stuff.
Oh.
That they're called the 3%ers. And Rohrwasser, when he was younger, got that tattoo thinking, and this is coming from him, that he thought that it was just like a pro-military thing, not a white nationalist group. So then when he got drafted and everyone was like, this guy literally supports white nationalism, he was like, I had no idea what that meant. I'm sorry. And then got it removed. Up for debate.
Yeah,
kind of stuff, but just wanted to say to the people out there, because I know when that name gets brought up, people are like, gosh, like, that guy, he did get the tattoo removed, so progress.
Yeah,
in that way. Not saying I defend the guy, who knows what his real intentions are, but I mean, if he's willing to take it off and get rid of it, I think that's easily a step in the right direction rather than defending it and leaving it on. Yeah. So
I guess if we're talking about talk being cheap, should we get into the anti-Semitic comments by Desean Jackson, Nick Cannon, Steven Jackson coming out and defending?
What a segue that ended up.
I'm getting better at the segue stuff, man.
That was, just like how you were saying before. I just gave you that little lob and you're dunking it.
Yeah. So should we? I guess. Well, the story's kind of old, but I'll preface it quickly for the people that don't, because a lot of the people that watch this don't. I feel like aren't really well entrenched in the world of sports, but I feel like even the people that weren't in the world of sports saw this. Sean Jackson came out on his Instagram citing a passage that he wrongly attributed to Hitler, and it was citing a Jewish American plot to upend African Americans. Am I around? Yeah, okay, I'm on the right track. So he got a lot of flack for that. Steven Jackson came out, defended him. They both eventually apologized, and I'll get into what Desean Jackson has been doing afterwards, because I do think he's taken a lot of positive steps. Recently as well, Nick Cannon on his podcast said something about how there was white people were savages, and that if you didn't have melanin, you didn't have a lot of soul in you, or something along those lines. Let me know if I'm incorrect here at any point.
Yeah, I did not look as much into the Nick Cannon stuff, but I knew that one of the things that he was saying is he was basically saying that black people were like the true people.
Yeah.
Of like that whole Mesopotamian region.
Right.
I want to say the exact quote was I could be wrong, but yeah. Only that's for future podcasts and stuff, we should have a guy like
producer
to pull up all the stuff.
Pull that up, Jamie.
Just like Jamie. Yeah. Have someone to pull up all that stuff to be able to figure it out. Once you get big time Cooperman, you'll easily be able to have a Jamie.
Yeah, right.
So, there'll be a Jamie there to help you out with this stuff. You won't have to worry.
Okay, Here we go. I feel like I look so much stuff up on this podcast anyways. Why stop now? Okay. Viacom CBS ended a decade-long relationship with Cannon after he said, obviously on his podcast, he called black people the true Hebrews. And
yes, that's what it was.
Conspiracy theories, which has been anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, have been the backbone of all of this anti-Semitic humdrum that's been going on. I think a lot of it too, and I don't mean to sound ignorant when I say this, but has been tied to the Nation of Islam and Louis Farrakhan. Noted anti-Semitic person, not the biggest fan of Jewish people. It's safe to say that too, a lot of people that are Jewish aren't fans of Louis Farrakhan or the Nation of Islam. So there's a lot of tension going around. Let's unpack first, I guess, the Desean Jackson comments, how you felt about it, because I said my spiel on multiple podcasts now. I'll just say it one more time for anyone new listening. I think at the least, if you're going to view it through Desean Jackson and Steven Jackson's eyes, if you're trying to build up this Black Lives Matter movement, at the least it's remarkably tone deaf. Remarkably dumb. You can't quote Hitler in an article and have the rest be a positive message. Not even that the stuff that they posted was a positive message. I'm saying in general, if you're going to post something, even if it's some uplifting quote, like I said on the Low Down with Jerry, if it's some uplifting quote, everything that gets negated when it's Hitler at the end of the thing. If you have a dash Hitler, everything else is like, step on the brakes. What's going on? That's a Hitler quote. It's a juxtaposition when you include Hitler and positivity in the same sentence. So at the least, if I'm giving the guy the benefit of the doubt, which I tend to now more because of the steps he's taking, which we'll get into in a second, it was just tone deaf. It really wasn't well advised at all. I know a bunch of people covered it. They kind of pussyfooted around the fact that he quoted Hitler, even wrongly. But, I'll get your opinion on it, so I don't really ramble too long on this.
No, don't worry. I mean, obviously, it hits more to home to you. Obviously, someone that that is Jewish. A bunch of my friends from school, right, from college, are Jewish. My girlfriend's Jewish. Like, I can only imagine, what those comments would feel like to them.
Yeah.
Much like to you, it's got to be, like kind of just like a, especially, I mean, like there were plenty of friends of mine that I had that were in, ZBT with me in school that that were Eagles fans that loved D-Jax. They loved him. And, and they were, Jewish. So then having like this come out, they're kind of like, what? Like,
yeah.
And just kind of not, especially, the Eagles are owned by Jeff Lowry, who's Jewish. So like all this just stuff is just kind of like, what? Like,
yeah,
they're Harry Roseman, is Jewish, who's their GM. So it's just like, or, their GM. So all of it is, just obviously frightening. But, I made this point to them because, obviously they were talking about stuff, and I know that we even went into some of like the political stuff on our last podcast together. You can't, if Black Lives Matter are supposed to be like equivalent to, like having equal rights as everyone, you cannot ignore or subjugate hate toward another group. So when you're seeing, different prominent African Americans like Steven Jackson or else like going out of their way to speak out against and kind of saying like, oh, like what Desean's saying is truth, like they're in my opinion only hurting themselves. Like they're not helping their cause. If you're, the whole thing is you're supposed to like work like with Jewish people and with other races. Unfortunately enough, like, what I was saying before, African Americans need, in a way, the help of white people, Jewish people included, to help, support and get their message across. So kind of working against them doesn't really help them at all. Even when I saw someone, Malcolm Jenkins, the former Eagles safety who now just re-signed with the Saints again, basically I kind of got what his message was from a friend pointing it out. And kind of like recircling, but essentially stating that quote unquote like the phrasing which he used, he was trying to say that Jewish people like weren't like the enemy of African Americans, but he phrased it, yes, not our problem, and didn't really offer anything to like clarify that. He only like retweeted something that just imagine like like a prominent member of the Jewish community. I'm saying like someone like will go out of my way to say like a Larry David, right?
Like
Larry David comes out and says, Black people aren't our problem. What? Like just the phrasing of that alone is inexcusable. Like where like that's like kind of like the double standard where it's like, well, that would like cost him like everything.
100%.
But that's like kind of like why I kind of got at least from what he retweeted like what his message was, but he could have phrased that much better. To the point where it just sounds terrible. It just sounds like very hypocritical and was poorly worded.
Right.
But yeah, no, and even with this whole like, Nick Cannon stuff being like re-aired, and now he's saying that, I know that he was saying that he demanded like the rights to Wild and Out and stuff, and like that was like his show and his brand. Like
they brought Ryan Seacrest on, that he's hosting it now, which is, I don't know, it's a whole other conversation, because I don't know why Wild and Out and Ryan Seacrest are mixing, but it's another conversation to have entirely. But yeah, I saw what happened with that. Allow me this for a second though.
Sure.
I've been postulating a lot on this recently, and it seems like, and let me know if you agree with this, like you said, there is a double standard. I think because the Holocaust in history is better documented than slavery, because some stuff is blatantly left out of slavery. You've kind of taught me that. Some stuff that I wouldn't necessarily not have known unless I've heard it from some of my African-American friends that I've had. And I also am very thankful that I've been able to have open conversations about this with a lot of my friends who are African-American. They can explain their side. I can explain my side. Obviously, as a Jewish man, them as an African-American. It still seems to me, though, like there is this weird, like you said, double standard, like where someone like Nick Cannon can get away with that, and then you got guys like Diddy's like, hey man, come on over to da 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 da, like we got your back, like we know that you said something but you didn't really even mean it, da 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 da. It's like, no dude, if someone said that on the other side, they get nuked. Like it's not me being salty. And yes, when I first heard about this, I was extremely angry, like I was outraged. But the more I looked at it, and that's, like I said on my last podcast, that's my job as a podcaster, is to look at all sides of the situation and make and assess and make an analysis. It's still, it's not being handled the same way. And it's also a lot of people, like the whole Shine situation. Shane's, did you hear about what happened with that?
Yeah.
People are still like, yeah, that happened, but I'm still going to buy from them. It's like, dude, if someone, let's just say someone had been, I don't know, I'm trying to think of like an example. If someone says, hey, I'm selling a Robert E. Lee necklace, $250, you could wear it. That company is not seeing the light of day again. I guarantee it. Or at the least,
the person, whoever made that decision, is getting axed, the owner axed, like all of that.
I just want to see. You're right. Like I'm trying to like, try to formulate an argument here and hit all the points that you made. But you're right. There's this double standard. It's not the same repercussions, because I think also too, a lot of people subscribe to this conspiracy theory where it's like Jewish people are the main oppressors of black people, which is not at all the case. It's really just not. We've been as oppressed, in some cases.
If it's anything, it's been from white Christians.
Right. Right. So the whole thing that we're somehow pulling the strings and we're up in the 1%ers going to F1 races and having like weird, Bilderberg meetings and all that. It's not true. It's just not. You know what I mean? It's not. And I think also, I like what you said, where it's like the whole basis of the movement is getting everyone on board and treating everyone the same way. Jewish people, I see a lot of people saying that the reason we have so much control and that we're overseeing everything is because we have so much money. Did you ever think that maybe we could be a powerful ally instead of just immediately that we could be a very powerful ally? Because it's true, like Jewish people, we know how to be successful. We had to be. It wasn't just because we got some handout. It's because we were constantly being prosecuted throughout history, and we figured out a way to get up in the ranks so that would stop happening to us. If anything, we're a powerful friend. And I'm trying to get everyone on the same page, because do I think that Nick Cannon fully is anti-Semitic? It pains me to say it. No, not all the way. Maybe. But I think with the case of Desean Jackson and Steven Jackson, they were brought up that way. Like I was discussing with my mother. I don't think they're hateful, but I think it's just the rhetoric that they were taught growing up. So I don't have any. Yeah, go ahead.
It's just no, don't worry. I didn't mean to cut you off if you wanted to finish anything.
No, I was just gonna say it's how they were brought up. It's the way they were brought up. So I don't have any hate for those guys. I just wish that like people, and I don't really subscribe to the theory either that it's complete anti-Semitism. I think it might be more that, I've had a change of heart on that because I used to think so. I just think that it's a lack of education on the topic. You know what I mean? That's
which is what I will, because if you think about even American education as a whole, and like this is like part of the reason why I think that this would happen, because slavery is a huge part of American history.
Mm-hmm.
It's taught, and obviously there's like a lot of stuff missing, but like at least like I think that it's very, very well known and known about, at least to Americans.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the Holocaust didn't happen here. The Holocaust was not something we promoted. The Holocaust happened to be something that happened in a foreign country, that happened, now like 75 years ago. But, touched, obviously, it would have been a lot more, but because of the tragic, 6 million people perishing, if you don't have, there are not that many Jewish people in the world. If you don't have, like Jewish friends or like, you wouldn't necessarily know as much about it.
Right.
So, kind of if you're in an African American community, not growing up with, that obviously slavery is emphasized because, that's what happened to your community. That is the history of how you came to the United States as an African American. I could see, where like slavery could be emphasized, where something like the Holocaust could just be like not as emphasized. And I'm not excusing it at all, but I could kind of see that happening.
No, I can understand. I didn't even think about it that way. And also that could have something to do with, well, actually definitely have something to do with, when you talk about like redlining or what was the term? I'm blanking on the term. Pigeonholing people into certain neighborhoods.
Gerrymandering?
Could be it. No,
Or redlining kind of is that.
Redlining, yeah, it might be redlining might be the term. Like, you're not going to be, like you said, you're not going to grow up around a lot of Jewish people who could educate you and say, hey, listen, we got like we got the business end of a shotgun as well. You know what I mean? Like, it's not been roses and cherries for us.
But that's the thing, but that's even what I'm saying, like even for African Americans, because it didn't happen here, whereas it happened to like their ancestors, it might not feel like as like
prevalent. I get that.
Even though it happened a lot more recently. Yeah. And they both had their, tremendous amount of issues. I kind of like look at it, obviously like, both groups have had their, unreasonable and obviously horrific hardships throughout history. But but they've happened in different parts.
Right.
Whereas the United States has obviously had its problems and issues with anti-Semitism, but has also been one of the places that has, kind of welcomed all communities.
Yeah.
In a way that like where like it actually gave, Jewish people at least more of the ability to kind of build up and succeed, which is why they were given that today. Where African Americans were obviously not, and everyone was systemically out to get them. But that, and especially like a Desean Jackson case or like stuff like that, I could see why the ignorance and kind of like lack of knowledge.
Yeah.
I'm not excusing it, but I could kind of see where that could have originated from, because it is, the Holocaust is obviously taught and but how much is it really emphasized, how much is really like known about it to like other communities and stuff. If I didn't even have my own experience and immersion with people of Jewish faith even in college, I would not know as much about Judaism as I know now. And that's even regardless of like the Holocaust and stuff. So if you're growing up without even knowing Jewish people or interacting with Jewish people, that's kind of, you could just be basing things off of terrible stereotypes that you hear or see. And that could be the way that you roll with it until you're proven otherwise, or stuff like this happens, that could end up being your logic, and, it just becomes pure ignorance. So
you're right. You know what, James, I love, that's why I love podding with you. It's because you always teach me something new that I didn't even think about, some other angle. I always thought that perhaps the Holocaust had more of a connotation on it than slavery, but thinking about it now, the way you put it, you're right. Like certain communities wouldn't even know about it because they didn't, They weren't grown up.
I mean, yeah, like how accurate or, not everywhere education in general is the strongest. Not every kid is necessarily going to have a desire to learn history or go out of their way to kind of figure it out.
Yeah.
And, especially in an African-American community, obviously the issue and like horrificness of slavery is going to be stressed because that literally happened to that group of people in this country. Yeah,
like, you're not going to be worried about the Holocaust. Yeah, you're not going to be worried about the Holocaust because you're going to be more worried about potentially getting pulled over and losing your life.
Yeah, well, even like that. Yeah, but even like even for a World War II thing, in communities like that, like I obviously would never like go out on a limb to say, but it would make sense if like they were even talking about African Americans during World War II going off to war, much like every other war, thinking that they would come home to get rights because they fought for their country and stuff. Like that could have been the message and what was taught during like World War II in African American communities, rather than because that is issues that directly like affected them, ended up like what they could have happened to like their grandparents, for anything. More so where like you don't really see many like Black Jewish people, so who like have like an ancestry in that regard, and where like something like the Holocaust could have like dramatically affected them, so maybe it just like wasn't stressed as much. And again, it wasn't in the US, it was in Germany, so that in itself just adds like a whole like different like tailspin to it. So
you're 100% right.
Yeah,
right. But
so
I think the message,
but no excusing any of that though. Like obviously, hate speech is hate speech. You could know Hitler enough to know that anything that you say and you try to put in a good light is just dumb. Like
that to me is the most baffling part. It's like what decision, what process went on in your brain to be like, you know what? I'm going to drop a Hitler quote on Instagram. Even if you're like I said on my other podcast, if you're part of the Nation of Islam, that's fine. Like you said, if that's what you're brought up on, that's okay. I'm not taking that away from anyone, but at the least, not even at the least, there should be, like I said, a rule of thumb, a basis to go off of. Never like go ahead and never quote Hitler unless you're in a neo-Nazi Facebook group or something. That's the bottom line. I think everyone should follow. Don't quote Hitler. Don't quote Joseph Stalin. Don't quote, like I don't. It seems like simple, common sense, but who knows? Maybe I'm just. I don't know.
No.
I don't know.
No.
You know what I mean?
Common sense, because all you need is even like the slightest bit of information about World War II to know that Hitler just was not a good guy. That
not a
just
solid dude.
Literally tried to eradicate an entire race, religion, like and try to create the perfect race. Like that's so anything quoting him and acting like what he said, even if it's misquoting, that's just stupid. Like that's just pure being dumb. But even some of the what you were saying when we were talking about the double standard between like some of the things that if a Jewish person went out and said that like blacks aren't our problem, like stuff like that's obviously a huge issue, problematic, like all of that, just as like in the certain phrasing of like how certain things are said, it's kind of like also even with Jewish people coming here, obviously you guys have like had like your own battles and stuff, but the one thing that I will say though, that like the type of oppression that at least like the Jewish community did not like have to face every day, even like after hearing all this, I think, which is kind of why they should like being an African American going to a high school named after Robert E. Lee or like Stonewall Jackson, like that's horrific. Thankfully and thank God you don't have any of these high schools anywhere in the world. There's schools that are named after there's no Hitler high school, there's no Joseph Goebbels high school. You know what I mean? We're like, that's just like, right. But, that's exactly why they can just work with these people. These people can work together, Jews and African Americans, and can work to like fight oppression like this. Cause, they're both dealing with issues of hate and, tragic, scenarios that have happened to both groups, whether it be here, whether it be abroad, that I think that the communities could really, really benefit with working together. And it's too bad, because there shouldn't be really a division between these communities at all, when there really could be like a great chance to
come together.
Make, yeah, and that means just even going for the white community, but obviously highlighted as is now, it's obviously both the Jewish and African American community. So
yeah. I think also too, it's important to state that I think it's important to state that I do believe that African Americans, as it stands now, are facing more oppression than Jewish Americans, for sure.
Especially in the United States.
Right.
In the United States, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's in the United States. So I'm not saying that I don't want anyone listening to this to take this as me crying or saying that, oh, boo-hoo, I'm Jewish and I feel oppressed. I don't feel oppressed. That's the thing. I really don't. Me as a Jewish American, I could probably do whatever I wanted in terms of like career.
People might not even recognize that you're even Jewish too.
Yeah, that's what
like I mean that. Like
no.
you could just be
does.
like, people could just think that you're a white guy.
Right.
And that's it. They could assume that you're a white Christian. Like, it doesn't even necessarily mean that.
Yeah. So I'm not oppressed at all. I can freely admit that. But my whole thing is, let's not lose sight of what happened, because in a way, if you lose sight of what happened, you can also lose sight of what's happening. Like, I think I'm going to encapsulate this with my own Cooperman quote here, right? If you lose sight of what happened in the past, you're going to get a division now. And that's what might be happening. You know what I mean? With all these comments coming out, it's like, if you don't take into account what happened with Hitler and the Holocaust, you're going to alienate certain people. Like, that's just how it is. That being the Jewish American community, that being a community that, off the basis of just literally being tossed around in the past and being segregated and being, and facing prejudice of all types, we should be coming together because we have that common ground. It's not like we've had such different experiences. Sure, there's differences if you look into it, but I'm saying on the surface, we've both been marginalized. So we should at the least, be coming together and forming a front, because we all are on the same page. And, and some people might say, Jewish people, they're not really marginalized anymore, so what would they know about it? But I challenge anyone to talk to a Jewish person that doesn't know about the past. Okay, because every Jewish person is taught by their parents, hey, this happened, so this never happens again. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and everyone's like hyper aware of it too, and to point it out when it does happen, to make sure to be like, hey, this stuff's not acceptable.
Yeah,
which it's not. But yeah, no, I get completely with what you're saying. But yeah, no, hopefully, with everything that's coming out and stuff, with Nick Cannon, Desean Jackson's obviously trying his best. It appears to repair some of the damage that he's done. Nick Cannon doesn't really seem to be doing that as much. We'll see what ends up happening. Hopefully, for both sides' sake, we won't be seeing much more, kind of more explosions of anti-Semitic remarks, like potentially like being put on social media, as long as, do anything, because that's the last thing that both sides need. You don't want to take any air out of the Black Lives Matter movement, and you don't want to obviously denounce anti-Semitism also. It was good to see someone in Kareem Abdul-Jabbar recognizing that.
Yeah.
And kind of just being like, look, we're fighting the same fight. And I think that stuff like that is more beneficial when you have members speaking out.
Yeah, especially
to talk about that. Yeah, no, literally one of the, NBA all-time leading scorer.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, one of the best Lakers of all time. Yeah. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what ends up happening with, both sides of the community. Obviously, we're seeing great changes socially now, but there's still so much more to be done.
A lot more work.
I know that we've touched a lot upon this, but even just going into the Breonna Taylor situation, that alone is just how, like what, like, and I don't mean to segue
No, go ahead.
Any of the the anti-Semitism, but just because of everything that's been happening with the African American community. Like how is only one cop from that whole ordeal fired, and then that's it so far?
Yeah.
I see the reposts every day of like, the murders are like walking around the street. How?
Yeah.
How in any scenario is that acceptable? I think at this point, I feel like a bunch of people, at least like the public, I would hope at this point is like, kind of like looked into the story enough for themselves. And I would recommend for anyone that has not to please do it. But like,
very, very disturbing.
How's the only one that got arrested was the boyfriend that was like trying to defend himself out of that whole,
doesn't make
that
any
just
sense.
doesn't, no, and the fact that all three of them, are still walking around as free people is just like, it's just very disturbing to me. I just, that shouldn't be the case for killing an unarmed, obviously literally EMT that you thought was someone else on a no-knock warrant, not even wearing police clothes.
Yeah.
You come in and just shoot her. It's just like, it's despicable. It really is just like that
Disgusting.
as it's it's just a failure of the justice system. And you're not seeing, different states are trying to and like Congress is trying to like put some federal stuff forth, try to like change and like upend some of these like, state laws and stuff to, at least the House is to like try to like make a difference with this. But this federal response, especially just with the Trump administration, is just going to go nowhere to help the Black Lives Matter movement, which is just an outright shame. If you saw more of a progressive president in office, you would see a lot of difference kind of like taking place and going on, and a lot more to kind of only help this change. Whereas you're not going to get it as much with the current administration from a federal perspective. At least the states that have recognized this problem have passed different state laws, kind of try to combat the issue and help it out. But, the best thing that I think that, the African American community could do is vote in November, man.
Yeah. Well, actually, I wanted to we can have a great dialogue here with the last kind of 15 minutes of the podcast,
Sure.
The 2-hour mark. Where do you see the future of the presidency? Now, Kanye West is
wow, I love
really
this.
Getting into the mix. I'm like shooting 3 for 3 from the field with these transitions, but we've got Kanye West in the running here. We've got
he
Joe
actually
Biden.
Just dropped out.
Oh, he just dropped out today?
Yeah, I mean, because he didn't know like a couple of days ago, but it's because he didn't even file the paperwork to run in the first place.
He missed a lot of states.
It was just
running
pathetic.
in 2024.
No, I was talking about 2020.
Oh,
so he might have. Yeah, no, because that was his thing. He was like, "Oh, I'm running for president," and then they're like, "Well, you missed all these dates. You didn't file for it." And then he was like, "Oh, I'm not running anymore because I like missed everything." It's
I thought he was gonna run in 2024. I thought he was. That's the reason.
He said the same thing about 2020. When he's not on medication, he can be a little crazy.
Yeah, that's the main, I think, talking point against him being for president is that he literally has bipolar, which is not on itself a bad thing, but if you're running the country and you have the ability to make split-second decisions, you probably should have all your mental faculties in order. Also, there's Joe Biden, and then there's Trump. So how are we feeling? What's the temperature? Who are you going to be voting for? And what do you see the outcome of all this being? Do you think Trump, by the end of his presidency, tries to unravel as much stuff as he can? Because I feel like that's kind of where he's going with all this. I could be wrong about that. Like, where do you see all this going?
So, I mean, just the fact that, even since our last discussion, masks are now a political thing, which they should never have been in the first place. That's problematic. You're not even seeing a federal response for coronavirus. You're just seeing these states.
Healthcare as well. He's pulling healthcare in the midst of
all this. Dude, it's not.
It's like, what are you doing, dude?
Well, you're not even seeing a federal response from this. You're just seeing states try to handle this the best they can on their own. So it's literally governors trying to figure out what works best for their state. Obviously, the pro-Trump people like DeSantis and Kemp are, Kemp suing people over issuing who's the governor of Georgia, suing people of like issuing mask mandates. DeSantis is, not making anyone wear a mask, and Florida's cases and death toll just continues to skyrocket.
Yeah.
This shouldn't be the case. Everyone should at least do what they can to wear a mask and be protective, and, do what they can to like stay healthy and protect others. I thankfully you and I live in a state where people get it,
Yeah,
and
I'm thankful for that. We started
people are
off
really understanding of stuff. Yeah, no, we went from the epicenter to being one of the safest places,
yeah.
where now you're just seeing Florida implode. So it's great to see us, kind of like getting our stuff together with this, and really like making a difference in that regard. But when it comes to the actual election itself, I mean, before this whole pandemic, I was very nervous because I thought that Trump had a good chance to win it again. But I mean, the fact that he just fired his own campaign manager a couple days ago because he was that afraid of the early polls and election results that he was seeing. I mean, this man, it's going to take a lot to get him out of office. I mean, even physically, he's going to blame everything he can if the election doesn't go his way, and like try to demand all this, demand all that. Like, he's nervous. He's afraid of what's coming.
Saw him on TV
Even though
he looked very sickly too. He looked gray.
it's not even that, dude. Like, just like he's afraid. I don't even think Biden, is like, again, what I was even talking about before, he ended up being on their last podcast, the most electable, which is why, like a lot of middle-aged and people on the Democratic side pushed him through because they thought that he was the best chance to beat him. Whoever he picks as his VP nomination is going to be massive because, with Joe Biden, I don't think that he's 100% mentally, but I still think even with that he would be better than Trump, just for at least the policy and kind of plans that I would enjoy. And look, but that's me coming from a Democrat. Obviously, a Republican would tell you much otherwise. But yeah, man, I'm hoping more than anything that he can win it. If Trump is this nervous that he's going to lose it, he will literally blame like the false mail-in ballots, voter fraud. He'll try to do whatever he can to almost act as if this election was invalid and they were out to get him, which is what he does with everything. I'm hoping to God just this upcoming November that, Biden wins, but even with that, we have to wait 2 months before he could be inaugurated anyways. So what Trump would do in that 8-week, 9-week window, if Biden wins, could also just like, he could make it an absolute disaster for Biden to walk in on, because I could still see Trump being like a sore loser.
Yeah, just
like that if he lost. But if he wins, then he'll just continue his own agenda, which is just like trash as is.
I could see the just
yeah, man. I'm
tiredness in your face.
Yeah. I mean, like, I'm not the only one. Obviously, there are other people that feel differently.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
Yeah, for me, I'm just like, it's,
How do you feel about Biden if he gets in? Do you think, because I know there's been questions about Biden's mental state and I guess a lot of people seem to say that he's quite senile, which I've seen. He's had his moments. A lot of people are saying that it kind of would hinge on who he picks as his running mate or his
VP,
vice president as well.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I was saying before.
I probably heard that from you.
Yeah. Who I think that he'll pick Kamala Harris, because I mean, we'll see what ends up happening. But if his mental state keeps declining, he might honestly just be unfit for the job at that point, which is whomever, and he's old.
Yeah.
So that alone, he'll be like 76, getting up there, and with the stressors of that job, it could just be consuming, where the point where his VP is just going to be huge. A lot of people are predicting it's going to be Kamala Harris. We should find out, honestly, who it's going to be in August, maybe even September, because they have debates scheduled in late September, early October. So we should know, at least in the next couple of months, who it's going to be. I'm looking forward to it. I'm just doing whatever I can to, initiate and, see this change. I don't necessarily overall like where American politics is heading, because it only just continues to seem to get more divisive.
Right.
And I was saying that before, rather than compromising and working together. But, that's part of the reason why I'm in it, to try and make a difference. So if I'm able to,
you'll get there.
Just getting a job would be the best thing right now. But obviously that's incredibly hard.
That's small steps.
Given everything right now. Yeah, man, little steps here or there, but I'm definitely trying to make the most of it. So
that's part of the reason too why I want to get into this, podcasting, blogging, interviewing world, is because I feel like, as with you, our voices carry an immense weight, and we're both. Yeah, I'm gonna just. I guess I'll gloat, but like we're both very well read, and we both have a very even head on our shoulders. We're even keeled. You know, I want to be able to help, say, African American and Jewish American relations. You know, stuff like that. Like I want to use my voice to help heal as well as entertain. So
Yeah.
I think it's something we both have the ability to do. I mean, we sat here for almost 2 hours, and and it's a podcast. You know what I mean? Like I think that's testament testament enough of what we can accomplish.
Yeah, even having it would be fun even having like joint podcasts with even other guests, you and I, or even other people, just to get their own perspectives on stuff. You know, I'm pretty sure like there would be plenty of people that would have a perspective, coming from like the African American community, or just even a Republican side, just getting like their kind of point of view.
I'm trying to get more involved in that too, so we'll definitely look forward to that in the future, guys. Anyway,
yeah,
that'll definitely
no, exactly, because it's just just having discussions and talks. You don't never want to go into a conversation changing anyone's mind. Right. That's not really what it does. It's just a dialogue and a conversation. You can't take things personally. You just have to realize that people grew up differently than you.
Yep.
As long as there's no disrespect in the conversation to, if it's to you or to a certain group of people, I think that you're able to have those conversations fluidly and soundly. And I think that, that's kind of what matters. Is being able to like fully have those talks.
And you bring the knowledge to the table. I mean, you bring not only knowledge, but you also bring an open attitude, and you bring a great deal of intelligence, which is, not many people could step on here and talk for 2 hours. And you have, like I said, you do most of the talking on these podcasts. But like I said, it's always a pleasure to have you on here. And
sorry about that.
No, you're good. No, it's all right. And have these conversations where we can hash stuff out and give both of our takes and our feelings on certain things. And for sure, like we got to have a third person on here. I have a few people in mind now that I've been in contact with. So I look forward to that, people. But I guess for this, episode, this installment of Chopping It Up, I've been your host, Coop, back with my repeat guest, James Dezell. I'm sure we'll have him on a third, fourth, fifth, whatever time, because he just.
I would love to come back, man. Be fun. So very 100%. Enjoyable indeed.
100%. So I will see you guys in the next one. It will most likely be another solo one with a wacky little skit at the beginning. And until next time, I've been your host, Jacob Cooperman, and we will see you in the next one.
Thanks for having me on, Coop. I appreciate it, bud.
No problem.
This has been the Chopp'n It Up podcast. Don't forget to rate and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, and everywhere else you listen to podcasts. Thanks for listening.